Greetings and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the symbolism behind scorpions. I wanted to talk about this and I realized I had a conversation with a group of individuals a few days ago, maybe about 3 or 4 days ago, and we were talking about scorpions and how people shouldn't eat them because they're a sacred animal, sacred animal. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do scorpions for my podcast on Monday since we're talking about it. And it's so funny because I wanted to share this with you because I want to show you how everything is in divine flow because today the moon is in Scorpio. And I didn't realize that it was going to be in Scorpio until now. Also, the 19th is rolling up and everybody's been talking about the big planets in the sky squaring Jupiter and Saturn. Mars is involved in an squaring Aquarius as well. And Pluto is in Aquarius. So everyone's been talking about this. And we know that Pluto and Mars are actually associated with scorpions because scorpions rule over the eighth part of our sky. Eight is also a number that's also associated with Saturn. So there's a lot of like similarities when it comes to the eighth house and Saturn's type energy. So this is actually a relevant topic that might actually affect collectively a lot of people. And I really want to get into it because scorpions are actually very interesting. They're very, very old. They're actually considered one of the oldest land animals. They were here before dinosaurs, and they actually used to exist in the sea. We know that scorpion, the eighth part of the sky, is a water sign, and it is fixed, which is interesting because the scorpion itself is actually an animal that really hasn't changed that much since its existence 400 million years ago. So it almost looks exactly the same. There are some slight differences because it was in the water, or water and land, but it spent more time in water, I believe. And also that the similarities that it has still is obviously its exoskeleton is the same. There's a correct name for this. I forgot the name, but the pinchers that it uses, those are also the same. However, its gills are the same. They're called book lungs, but the lungs are actually inside of the body instead of outside of the body. Scorpion is actually a Greek word that comes from a word which comes from the Pi root skur, meaning to cut. When we think about the scorpion parts of our sky, this is going to be a very related astrology topic because the Scorpio part of our sky is a part where we feel like we've been cut or we've been stung because the scorpion has that stinger. But the thing about the poison of the scorpion that is misunderstood is that there's over 1,000 different species of scorpions, and there's over 1,000 different types of wounds, probably more, that people experience in the part of their scorpion sky. Some of those scorpion venoms, only 2% of those scorpion venoms out of 1,000, over 1,000, excuse me, are actually fatal to humans. They're more fatal to the insects that arthropods is the family that they're in, and also they're an arachne family because they're connected to spiders. However, they do eat spiders. Those venoms are only fatal to 2% of humans. And also they sometimes use those venoms on each other when mating. So that's very symbolic. So when we think about the scorpion parts of our sky, because scorpion represents intensity and power struggles and tyranny and just violence, depending on depending on what's there, it can represent that. But typically the Scorpio part of our sky is not light and fluffy. It represents the underworld, the things that are difficult, the things that are poisonous, you know what I'm saying, venomous, like the Scorpio stinger. So the things that sting, the things that hurt. And it also helps us, those things that hurt us also help us understand ourselves more. So the underworld is actually a powerful point of transformation. Um, a powerful point of transformation, a powerful point of poisonous energy that can be alchemized. Now, the other thing that's interesting about scorpions is that their digestive, the enzymes, they take, they actually use their enzymes and they remove them from outside of their body and they coat their prey with their stomach insides and it becomes like this liquid form that they actually suck down. So it takes several hours for a scorpion to actually eat. And it eats from pulling the enzymes out of its stomach and putting that liquid on its prey, coating the liquid until the prey almost becomes a liquid, and inhaling, basically sucking down, um, the, what do you call it? The prey. And they leave all the hard parts. And when you look at, the serpent and things like that that are associated with ugliness and things we don't want to talk about, things we want to suppress, things we don't want to look at, when we really need to look at those things to become more whole. We need to look at the things that are toxic to become more whole. So a lot of things that are happening in society, there are certain topics that are poisonous to society, whether we realize or not. These underlying issues that we need to talk about that are just ugly. You don't want to look at them. It's just, decay, rot. Don't want to look at that. But we need to look at these things so that we can begin to understand these things and find solutions, because only through looking at these disgusting things, right, can we actually find resolution. And the Scorpio is such a powerful animal that represents danger and toxicity, but also represents power, because it's the power to be able to look at these things. It's the power to look at those things, they're ugly, and transform them, alchemizing them. And I really do believe, from just looking at the scorpions and studying them, that this process of them eating their prey, it shows alchemy. And that actually happens within us. There's a process that actually happens within inside us, where that is an alchemy too, when parts of ourselves are dying. It's this tug of war, like almost like prey, the prey and the prayer, or the predator. It's almost like this tug of war within ourselves. So when we talk about, the scorpion, we're talking about an animal that's been around for a long time that obviously represents so many levels of death. Another interesting thing about the Scorpio is, hold on, looking at my notes. Oh, the scorpion's venom actually produces, it has high amounts of something called luciferian, which is basically a chemical that actually makes the scorpion not only be able to, paralyze its prey, or paralyze a human, depending on what scorpion species, but also it makes it so at night they actually are illuminated. If you have like blue light and you walk outside with blue light and you want to locate scorpions, you will find them, because the luciferian chemical within them makes them light up when blue light is on them. We also know that Lucifer is a word that a lot of people don't want to talk about, that don't want to, that just, disrespect that word. When it comes to Christianity and things like that, a lot of things that are not true when it comes to Lucifer, because Lucifer is actually a word that means light bearer. And when we look at Luciferian, Scorpions are considered animals that people don't want to deal with neither. They have a very negative connotation, just like Lucifer, which actually is more of a positive name. But like I said, this chemical compound is not only found in Scorpios, it's also found in fireflies. And when we look at the symbolism of fireflies, they represent enlightenment, because one has to travel to the darkness of your own mind, the darkness of your own self, or the darkness of society, to look at the ugliness and transform and alchemize that energy and shift and change it to become more whole, to have a better experience in life. Because if you cannot see the darkness that plagues you, you cannot begin to change and shift those things for the better. So I believe that before I move on, another thing that's interesting about scorpions is, there's a couple of things actually. The scorpions, in relation to this darkness, the scorpions are actually nocturnal, even though they have poor eyesight. They have hairs on their legs that help them to be able to maneuver and they maneuver through their environment. The hair is like a sensor that helps them be able to see without having great vision. Very similar to the octopus in a way, because except the octopus doesn't have hairs, it's just using its skin, the intelligence of its skin, but it's still about using your body to sense your environment. And we do that as humans. We also have hairs that help us sense different things as well. But the scorpion actually only is more active when there's no moonlight, when there's less detection of moonlight. So it literally represents being in a dark space and not being able to see, and still be able to sense your way around, still be able to move around without moonlight, without, preferring to travel without moonlight. This animal prefers to be in the dark. Some scorpions live in crevices, a lot of them do. Not all. Different species do different things. Some of them are typically isolated, but when we look at the emperor scorpion, it lives in family groups. Another interesting about scorpion things is that scorpion mothers, once the female and the male mate, the male removes himself from the female because he doesn't want to get eaten by her. So that's very interesting because we know there's a similarity with arachnids, spiders, and in some spider families, there's that aggressiveness too. But also that the mother carries her babies on her back and has a 9-month digestion period, just like man. Man meaning mind, meaning us as people. We have the same gestation period. And they carry their babies on their back. But sometimes, in some cases, if the mother is hungry, or I don't know, for whatever reason, the mother will actually eat her own babies if necessary. The mother will typically have a dozen babies. 12 is significant because 12 represents completion and the number of God associated with Pisces, understanding the duality through all of the arcs in the sky, all of the areas in the sky, going through a complete circle to end up on 12, which is a completion of wisdom and knowledge of that life cycle or of that particular cycle. So there's that. And then also, and not only can the mother, this is also something that happens with cats. Cats will eat their own kittens if they lose their scent and things like that. So there's some similarities there. But another thing that's interesting too is that the babies of the baby scorpions will actually eat the mother if the mother becomes fatigued. And this is what I'm talking about. The Scorpio part of our sky has that type of energy. It's like this fatal energy, this darkness that we don't want to address, that we need to look at to gain more power, understanding of the darker aspects of life, because there's a lot of things that people don't want to deal with when it comes to their own shadow, but it belongs to you. So you need to address it. So there's that. So I think that pretty much covers all the things. Oh, scorpions have 8 legs, by the way. So that goes back to also being associated with Saturn. And obviously, the 8 is the Ouroboros, which is also the dragon and the serpent. I mean, the dragon eating its own tail, or the serpent. It's also seen as a serpent. So there's just a lot of different symbolism that comes up when we're talking about Scorpios. And when you see Scorpios, it can mean that you're going through a difficult time, or you could be going through a difficult time, or there might be minor challenges. It depends on what is happening. Remember, when you see certain animals, especially these animals that are associated with the underworld, that have layers of symbolism, because the underworld is very dimensional. It has different layers. It's like an onion. So there's a lot of different angles and things that you need to look at. And sometimes it can be hard to see. And that's why the scorpion is a power animal, because it helps us look at the things that we can't see, because the scorpion prefers to move at night and uses its senses, which are a part of its body, right? It senses its body to help itself understand its environment and ultimately thrives. So they're not endangered. You know, scorpions aren't endangered, and they, like I said, they've been around for a long time, and they're still thriving in their species, meaning there's still over thousands of species, and you don't see that with a lot of animals. You don't see that with the turtles. The turtles have, you know, the turtles are going through it, so you know they're a thriving species. So what I would say is scorpion. When you see a scorpion, it might represent difficult times, but ultimately you will come out empowered. Ultimately, you will come out empowered because the scorpions have survived so many different climate changes and still continue to thrive with over 1,000 species. So, and it also, it's guardianship too. It also represents guardianship. It was seen that in the ancient days of our, you know, my ancestors, and it's a power animal, so do not be scared to look at the things that are ugly, because where you look at those things gives you to the awareness and the power to be able to shift and change them and alchemize yourself, bringing you into a different way of existence, a different way of living, which essentially will be considered like an afterlife in the physical realm. So scorpions are very powerful. Creatures to be respected, not hunted and eaten, excuse me. So keep in mind about that about scorpions. Do not be scared when you see them, or if you have a dream about it. Just figure out, you know, just tap into the energy and understand that it's a gift that is being perceived as a curse that can be shifted and changed for the better. All right. Much love, much peace, and much fulfillment. And may the Jupiter and Saturn Square bring you clarity, slow you down and bring you clarity into the things that need to be adjusted. All right. Thank you. Peace.